Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It is me, Zaza here, and I'm bringing you the second installment of our new series, History, Mystery and Makeup. And this time I'm bringing you a very strange case. It's a case that you're gonna rack your brain over for the whole time you watch this video. You gotta love it. So this is the case of the Pollock twins, and I know that it's one of them cases where a lot of people know but a lot of people don't know. So if you don't know, you might want to stick around, and even if you do know it, you might learn something you didn't know before. So without further ado, let's get into the Pollock twins case. So as you can see, I'm starting this with my eyebrows already done. Thought it'd be easier, so I'm now just going to cut them in and we can start this mystery. So on the 7th of May 1957, Joanna Pollock, who was 11, and her younger sister Jennifer Pollock was walking to church with their friend in Hexham, which was in Northumberland, England, when meanwhile a local woman who seemed to be on a suicide mission due to the fact that her children were forcibly being removed from her care was driving towards them. Witnesses claim that she was driving erratically, and it was later found that she had taken lethal quantities of both aspirin and I think it's phenobarbiturates. Unfortunately, the local woman ended up hitting all three children. Both Joanna and Jennifer ended up dying instantly upon impact, and the young boy was taken to hospital. I don't know whether he died or not. I couldn't find much on the young boy, but if you look into this case and you find out, please let me know what happened to the young boy. But yes, the two girls, sisters, ended up dying upon impact, which is really sad. So the media covered both the inquest and the trial, and the local woman ended up being placed in a psychiatric hospital, which I wonder whether was better than prison. I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. The whole, mental health thing, especially, I mean, I don't know why you would take drugs to commit suicide but then jump in your car and drive. It doesn't really make sense to me. Like, if you're trying to kill yourself, like, I don't think anyone should be trying to kill themselves, by the way, but if you're trying to kill yourself, why are you gonna put other people in danger at the same time? And look what happened. Two little girls ended up dying because of it. Anyway, we'll continue. So who were Joanna and Jennifer Pollock? Well, they were daughters of John Pollock, who was a Bristol native and grew up in the Church of England. He later ended up converting to Catholicism, and his wife Florence Pollock, who grew up in the South Asian Army and later converted to Catholicism when she married John Pollock. The family, they had other children, so they had two boys, and I believe they had some girls, but I'm not sure, but they definitely had two boys, two older sons, older than the girls. So John Pollock was said to have been really, like, he had a very strong belief in reincarnation, and he told interviewers later on that he used to pray to God that God would show him proof of reincarnation, and he wanted to prove priests wrong, that reincarnation did exist. It's noted that the family ended up leaving the church in the 1960s. So The girls were mostly raised by their maternal grandmother due to the fact that their parents owned a grocery and milk business. And it was said that Joanna and Jennifer were inseparable. Although they were 5 years apart, they were inseparable. Like, they spent all their time together, they played together, and Jennifer, the eldest, used to mother Joanna used to mother Jennifer a lot, but Jennifer liked it. Jennifer went along with it. She didn't see a problem with it, and the girls used to like to dress up, and especially Jennifer, the eldest, she liked to dress up and make up plays and then play them out. They were really sweet little girls, and they also liked combing people's hair. All of this will make sense once I continue with the story, but it's important for you to keep these in mind as I continue with the story. But they like to comb people's hair, especially in their family, but especially their dad's hair. They love combing their dad's hair. So at some point when Joanna was young, she used to say to her family members that she had a premonition that she was never going to grow up, that she thought that she was she used to say the words, "I'm never going to be a lady." So it's really quite sad, like, that you would even have a premonition like that. Sad and scary. I think it's sad and scary, to be fair. So also, things to know is that Jennifer, the youngest daughter, when she was about 3 years old, she ended up getting a scar on her forehead from when she was riding her bike and she fell, and I believe she hit her head on a bucket, and she ended up with a gash on her forehead, which ended up being quite a deep scar, and used to be more prominent when it was in the cold weather. So when it was like winter times, you would see it more. She also had a birthmark on her left side of her side. She had a birthmark. So when the girls died, it put an immense pressure on John and Florence's marriage, and there's a lot out there saying that they was on the verge of divorce, which is quite sad. I can't imagine, and I don't want to imagine what it must be like to lose your children, and then and then try to continue a relationship. Like, you're probably just all consumed in the fact that your children have passed. But Florence, her coping mechanism was just to not think about the girls as much as possible. Just try and not think about them. I don't know how much this actually worked for her, but that's what she did. She just tried not to think about the girls. However, John Pollock, he used to think about the girls all the time. He used to keep them in his thoughts. So the day of the accident, John Pollock said that he actually had a premonition that the girls were in heaven. I think that's really freaky, but he had this premonition, and he also had a strong sense that he could feel their presence in the top room of the house. So he ended up spending a lot of time in that top room in the house. Due to his, immense beliefs in reincarnation, he did believe that the girls would be reborn into, another life. But he had immense guilt because he felt like all that time he was praying to God for proof of reincarnation. He felt that God was punishing him by taking his girls away because of what he was asking for so much, But because he felt so strongly about reincarnation, he thought that, maybe this was his chance to be shown by God that it does exist, and maybe, these girls will be reborn into new children. However, Florence didn't agree. She didn't have as strong beliefs in reincarnation as John did. She was quite skeptical, like not completely against it, but she was skeptical that reincarnation even existed. So what was crazy about this was that on the 4th of October 1958, so a year and 5 months following the death of their daughters, Florence actually became pregnant. And you know, John was so adamant that he was having twins and they was going to be the reincarnation of his 2 daughters that he lost. He believed this firmly. However, doctors had a completely different view. They said because of the fetal heartbeat and palpitations, that they thought it was going to be a single birth. And also for the fact that there was no twins in either side of their families. No twins recorded in their families, so they didn't believe that these were going to be twins. My mistake, I've just realised I've been calling the younger daughter Jennifer. The younger daughter of the original siblings were actually Joanna and Jacqueline, not Jennifer. Joanna and Jacqueline were the first 2 sisters. So let's get back into the story. My apologies. So what was crazy was that although doctors had so firmly said that no, you're not having twins, you know, because of all these reasons, they actually Florence actually ended up giving birth to 2 twin girls who they named Gillian and Jennifer. So this is the Jennifer. My apologies. What was crazy was that Jennifer actually had birthmarks in the exact same places that her sister who died had them. So she had a indented scar here on her, here on her left, above her left left eye, on her forehead, and she also had the same birthmark as her sister, this red brownish birthmark on her side, on her left side, just like her sister Jennifer did. I find that insane. Now what's crazy is, like, my dad has a birthmark on his chest and it is exactly the same as my nan's, like his mother. They have the same birthmark. It's the exact same shape and the same placement. I find it so crazy. Like, isn't that weird? Like, don't you find that strange? Like that a birthmark can be carried down. But anyway, so she had these birthmarks, and you know, John Pollock was convinced, you know, that his girls had in fact been reincarnated. From the ages of 3 to 7, the twin girls would make many statements, you know, regarding their older sisters and things that had happened that they was never around for. You know, Florence would bring out toys that were previously their elder siblings' toys, and they would make statements about the toys like, oh, this is my toy from Santa. But the girls had never received these toys from Santa. These were toys that Joanna and Jennifer had received from Santa for Christmas. But these girls had never received these toys for Christmas. It was actually I'm getting mixed up with these names. Joanna and Jacqueline that had received these toys. So it was very strange that the girls were making these statements to say these toys were given to them by Santa. It was like they weren't even told that. They wasn't told anything about their older siblings. That's something to point out. This, you know, early on in this story, but also they wasn't told about these toys, like who owned them before them. They just thought that they had been given these new toys from Santa, you know. What was also strange is that the girls would pick the toys for that were originally, it was so strange. So Gillian would pick out Joanna's toys and Jennifer would pick out Jacqueline's toys. And what was strange about this is because, you know, they, like they were saying, it was Jennifer who had all of the birthmarks in the similar places as Jacqueline had, and Gillian was said to have acted and been quite like her older sister Joanna. So confusing. All the names are so similar. The girls also never quarrelled or argued about whose toy was who or playing with the toys. They never quarrelled about any of that. Like, they just used to get on with playing with their toys that they believed were their toys given to them by Santa. And Gillian actually made a statement saying, "This is my clothes wringer toy that Santa Claus gave me." Another really crazy thing that used to happen is that often John and Florence would overhear Gillian and Jennifer discussing their, almost like reliving their sisters' deaths. But like I said, they'd never been told about them. But not only were they reliving it, they would just discuss it often, and it was so crazy. So one time Florence overheard the girls discussing the accident, and Gillian cradled Jennifer and said, "The blood is coming from your eyes. I can see the blood pouring from your eyes." And she said that's where the car hit. And John later in the interview said that when he went to identify the girls' bodies, Jacqueline actually had a bandage wrapped around just above her eyes on her forehead. She had a bandage. There was also a time when Gillian pointed at the birthmark that was on Jennifer's head, on her forehead, and said, "That is the mark that Jennifer got when she fell on the bucket." Like, what? She didn't even know. She wasn't there. No one's told her. How does she know that, you know? Well, first of all, it wasn't Jennifer, because Jennifer wasn't born yet. It was Jacqueline that fell on the bucket from, you know, her being on the bike and getting into that accident. So how did Gillian know where that birthmark had come from? Well, it was a birthmark on Jennifer, but on Jacqueline it was a scar. So how did she know this, you know? There was also another time when John, who was painting the house, was wearing one of Florence's old smock dresses that she used to wear when they used to deliver milk and groceries. But since, you know, a little while after her eldest daughters passed away, she stopped wearing the dress, and you know, she wasn't delivering the milk and groceries anymore, so she stopped wearing the dress. Well, anyway, John was wearing the dress, and Jennifer comes in and sees him in this dress, and she said to him, "Dad, why are you wearing Mother's coat?" She called it a coat, but she said, "Why are you wearing Mother's coat?" And then she got really annoyed that Gillian hadn't even noticed that her father was wearing this smock dress. But the reason they say that, you know, if they are reincarnated, why Gillian wouldn't have realised is because Gillian would have been at school when their mother was going to go and deliver these groceries, so she wouldn't have seen her mum in this smock dress. John actually asked her, you know, "How do you know this is your mother's dress?" And Jennifer said to him, "Because Mummy used to deliver the milk and groceries in that dress." So she was just fully aware of something she was never around for. So the family moved from one part of Hexham to another when the girls were 9 months old. But on a visit to their old area, when the girls were 4, there was an incident where the girls were saying to their parents, can we go to the park across the road? Can we go to the park across the road? And they were nowhere near the, where they could see the park. They'd never been there before. They should never have known that there was even a park there. But they were saying they wanted to go to this park. So that was really spooky. Like, how did they know that there was a park across the road if they'd never been there? And they knew, like, where the swings were, everything. They was explaining the park, but they'd never been there. Another incident was when Florence asked the girl, the girls were complaining about their lunch, and Florence said to them, well, you could have lunch at school. When you go to school, eat their food, the school lunches. And the girls turned around to her and said, we've done that before. She was like, the girls never done this. It was her sisters that had gone to school. There was many occurrences and incidents where the girls had, made remarks or said things about things that they should never have known about, that was nothing in relation to them. It was all about their sisters. It was all things that their sisters had done or seen or whatever, which was so strange to John and Florence. And Florence obviously began to believe that, yes, this must be the reincarnation of my children who died. John often stated in many interviews that, when the girls used to discuss their, deceased sisters who they had never met, when they used to speak about the accident, they used to speak about it in present tense, like they was reliving what had happened, almost like it was happening right there and then, or the day before or whatever. Like it was like they were living it, but obviously it wasn't something they had been through. It was something their sisters had been through and unfortunately didn't survive. So how did they know? How did they have all these memories of something that never happened to them? The girls were also apparently very similar, the twins should I say, were very similar to their oldest sisters who passed. Gillian was very similar to Joanna, the eldest of the sisters, the 11-year-old. She was very generous. She loved to dress up and and loved to mother her sister, her sister Jennifer. And Jennifer was very much like her sibling who died, Jacqueline, the youngest of the elder siblings. Which was, the parents seemed quite strange. They also loved to comb their father's hair. They loved combing people's hair, especially their fathers, which, like I said before, was I remember I said it was something you should note, was that, this was something that their elder sisters loved to do. Combing hair was like their thing. Little girls, they just loved to use everyone like a dolly. So, yeah, they loved to comb hair, and so did these twin girls. The girls, the twins, also seemed to adopt phobias of cars. They were very, very careful when crossing the road. They were very cautious about cars. Florence did believe that it's partly due to her own anxieties and her own caution regarding cars, and the twins knowing how to cross the road safely and so on, because of what happened to her, her children prior. She was very cautious with the twins and her other children when crossing the road. But there was still a fear within the children. Another incident that happened in regards to their phobia was, there was one day that John was walking with the girls down an enclosed alleyway, and a car was started its engine. When the car started the engine, the girls just clung on to each other and they were shouting and screaming, "It's the car, it's coming for us." Almost like they was reliving a past trauma, something that had happened to them personally. But obviously we know that, you know, if reincarnation does exist and these girls really are the reincarnation of their sisters, you know, the trauma of seeing a car coming towards you and, you know, your life is taken, you know, or just that fear of, I can imagine any car would probably make you feel that way. Anything around a car would make you feel that way. I know I'm more cautious because I got hit by a car. It's one of my story times that I've actually put on this channel before. But it does make you more cautious when you're around cars. Like, you won't, like, I'm very funny with crossing the road, making sure nothing's coming, especially Cayenne crossing the road. I'm very funny, you know, because you just, the caution is just up. It's just up. So before Jacqueline, the youngest of the elder siblings, the 6-year-old, before she turns 6, her teacher was actually speaking to her parents and saying, you know, Jacqueline holds her pencil like this, you know, in a fist with the pencil coming through and writes like this. You know, a lot of children do that. It's quite common with children, I've noticed. But yeah, she couldn't hold the pencil in the proper writing stance, you know, that we write like this. She couldn't do that. And what was noted was that Jennifer, one of the twins, also had this thing of holding her pencil like this in a fist. And it wasn't until she reached the age of 7 that she could actually start writing, you know, properly. And it's quite noticeable that her sister Jacqueline died when she was 6 and used to write like this. But obviously after she died, she's passed. Now her sister Jennifer, once she reached 7, can now write properly. It's quite crazy. Jennifer had many issues with writing, and throughout her young adult life she would still sometimes revert to writing like this, almost like subconsciously she was going back. It's weird. But it's funny because Gillian wrote properly from the beginning, from the age of 4 when they both started writing. Gillian could write perfectly, which makes sense if they are reincarnated, because obviously Joanna, who was the eldest at 11, because obviously write properly, she was 11 years old. She was already in secondary school by then. She could write fine. So if she was a reincarnation, Gillian, then she would know how to write properly from the beginning because she was already 11. If that makes any sense. You got to work with me. You got to be in my head right now. Right, I'm going to go put my liner on and put my lashes on, and I'll be back. So in 1963, following newspaper articles regarding the twins were put out, a Canadian-born US psychiatrist named Ian Stevenson read about the case and began investigating. Stevenson would go on to visit the girls and the girls' parents numerous times throughout their lives. He first actually met the girls when they were 4 years old and wanted to check the birthmarks that they had claimed to be similar to their elder siblings, or John and Florence's elder daughters, and he also wanted to interview John and Florence also. He returned again when they were 8 in 1967, and he also returned again when the girls were 20 in 1978. From taking the blood samples, he was able to determine that the twins were, I believe it's monozygotic. I don't know how to say it properly, but if you know, then tell me how to pronounce it properly. But it basically meant that they was identical twins. Unfortunately, Florence Pollock died in 1979, so when Stevenson went to visit the twins again, John Pollock was actually remarried by 1982. On this visit, he spoke to John and Gillian to see like how things were and what was going on now, and he actually stayed in contact with John until he died in 1985. So I'm just looking at my notes just so I get this name right. So Stevenson's case report was actually detailed in the second edition of the Reincarnation of Biology, a contribution to the etology of birthmarks and birth defects. Moving on to the criticisms of this report, many other psychologists and people among the same industry had quite a lot of negative things to say about Stevenson's report. When Stevenson met with the girls in their 20s, by this time the girls had no memory of any of their past life memories that they used to have while they was young. It seems as though as time went on, all those memories began to fade, and I think that's quite, that's something you can expect, because do you still have memories from, because personally I don't have many memories from before 6 years old. Like, I can't really remember anything. I don't think I have any memories from before 6 years old, to be honest. So it's not out of the ordinary to think that the girls by the age of 20 couldn't remember any of this, and it seemed like they were quite skeptical about what their parents had told them, because the parents decided to tell them, I think, after the ages of pre-teens. So they did end up telling them after being 14 what had happened to their older sisters, but they were skeptical. They was like, okay, we accept that you think that we're reincarnations of our older sisters, but don't know. However, in 1981, Gillian actually experienced an inner vision. She saw herself and her older brothers in a sand pit in a house that the family used to live in Wickham before she was born. She was able to describe what the surrounding area looked like, what the house was like, the gardens, everything. But she'd never been there, she'd never lived there, and it actually would have been before Joanna was even 4 years old. So it would have been a memory, her older sister Joanna's memory from before she was even 4, that Gillian had this inner vision of, which is something to note. Like, that's insane. So there was a lot of skepticism around the community of Stevenson's report and case study that he carried out among psychiatrists and so on. They felt like it was quite easy to claim that the girls were lying, or that the family was lying about, this reincarnation. They were saying that, it would be quite easy for the girls to obtain this information from their older brothers, from their parents, other family members. So they wasn't really sure whether to believe that this even happened, whether they really were an example of reincarnation, because there were so many things that they felt went against that. One of the theories was that Florence, while she was pregnant with the twins, would have had her elder daughters on her brain a lot. The accident, what happened to the girls' lives, and it could have been a maternal impression, which, because Florence was thinking so heavily about her daughters, this imprinted on her twins. So the thoughts, feelings, memories imprinted on her twins. They believed that a lot of Stevenson's other cases, so with other children that he'd had, they could be more understanding or more evidence towards reincarnation, because often the children that were reincarnated were usually from people that were from different locations or different times, you know, and it would be far-fetched, completely far-fetched, that they could ever learn about these other people. But they felt that in the Pollock case, it was quite easy for the girls to obtain this information, you know, from family members, from their elder siblings, from the parents themselves. You know, they felt, you know, because John especially felt so strongly about reincarnation, they were saying, well, you know, there may have been times where John was talking about the older sisters and talking about the fact that he felt that the twins was reincarnated in front of them, which made them then, you know, kind of act out how the parents spoke about their elder siblings. Some people differed in their opinions, you know. Some were saying that because John was so strong in his beliefs of reincarnation, not only did it influence Florence, but it also meant that anything that they saw that was similar, you know, to their elder daughters, they would kind of pounce on it and make it a bigger than it actually was. When it was just simply similar, they would be like, no, this is exactly the same. This is our daughters. This is our elder daughters. This is exactly how they were. And, you know, no one could tell them otherwise. There was actually an interview that John had done where he had said, you know, if an interviewer asked him, if you had not had these beliefs in reincarnation, would you have believed that your children, your twins, were? And John agreed that had he not had any belief or knowledge of reincarnation, then he probably would never have suspected anything. Stevenson, however, was very, you know, he was very certain that, along with another case, that this was concrete, almost, evidence that reincarnation is a possibility. What I find my thoughts on this, and what I find particularly strange, and I don't know where I stand on my beliefs regarding this issue. I think when I was younger, I definitely believed in it. You know, but you know, we're skeptical. You know, when you get older, you get skeptical. But I think, who am I to say whether it happened or not? I don't know. I didn't see the children when they was growing up. I didn't see their elder children. How can we say whether it happened or not? We can't. You can only listen to the experiences, listen to the evidence, and make a decision for yourself whether you believe in it or not. Because it's nothing we could ever prove either. It's very, I don't know if it, I mean, I can't say we're never going to prove it, but it's not something we can prove now. So unless they prove it and show us the evidence for it, you know, it is within us whether we want to believe it or not. There are many reincarnation stories across the world, you know, and reports on not only children but adults also believing that they're reincarnated. And a lot of the times it's from people, you know, really far back in history. There's been reports where people go to hypnotherapy and they ended up speaking about past lives. But then, you know, there has been some that have been shown that were not true, because in reality they were influenced heavy on books, TV and films. So why they look to children more so is because they don't have necessarily that influence from media and TV and so on. So who are we to say? I would like to start a discussion about reincarnation in the comments if you have anything to say, because it would be nice to believe that you could be reincarnated, but at the same time, does it make any difference? That sounds a bit harsh, but does it make any difference if, say for instance, I'm reincarnated into someone in a completely different country who doesn't know any of my family members, does it really make any difference? And I will have no memory, you know, unless, you know, I have memories of my past life, but not to the extent where it's like makes a difference. I don't know. I think this is a, you know, it's a really good topic, and I think it depends on what you believe, because reincarnation, I'm sure, is from Buddhist and Hindu religions, but I think it's quite a universal thing where, you know, a Church of England Catholic person could have the same beliefs. So let me know what you think. I was very interested in this case, and I was reading all this, doing all this research, and I was just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my. You have to read it, and it's like, how would they know? How would they know? Like, to be that scared of cars to the point where they're like, it's coming to get us. Like, I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling now. I did really enjoy researching this. If you have anything you'd like to discuss about this case, do leave a comment and I will definitely respond. If you're new to my channel, then please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe. Oldies but goldies, please give it a big thumbs up. And I shall see you in the next History, Mystery and Makeup. Bye.